We've been sleeping. We've had each other and Ferrix, our work, our days. We had each other and they left us alone. We kept the trade lanes open and they left us alone. We took their money and ignored them. We kept their engines churning, and the moment they pulled away, we forgot them. Because we had each other. We had Ferrix. But we were sleeping.
Greetings once again, Pucketheads. Mayvar Shigar. Welcome to the 184th rabble-rousing, rebellious episode of Mandovision. Nargai Tom, and thank you so much for checking out this small independent Star Wars podcast. We are so glad you're here to discuss the season finale of Andor. Holy smokes. Oh, woo! Well, remember, the best way to reach out to us is, of course, via social media. We are on Instagram and Twitter. You can email the show, mandovisiontom@gmail.com. Please be sure to like, subscribe, share, and follow the show with all the Mandalorians in your covert. How is everyone doing? Welcome to the final installment of Andor Wednesdays, a title I cannot, for the life of me, improve at this moment in time. I will work on that. That is my mission. Heading into Season 2 of Andor, I will workshop that title to no end. Trust me on that one. How is everyone doing? We are here to talk about the final episode of Season 1 of Andor. Just what a great series this has been for so many, many reasons, not the least of which is just the different point of view that we're getting on Star Wars at this point, on the galaxy at large, on the Empire, on how the rebellion takes shape. It's been a very, very interesting journey. It's been fascinating. I think each episode has ramped up, increased the tension, increased the stakes, and just delivered one of the finest Star Wars shows we've all had the privilege of watching thus far. And I mean, the show progresses in such a lovely, lovely way that all of our characters end up in a new place by the end of it, so that we are 180 degrees away from where we started in the first episode of the season, particularly by the end of the first arc. You know, by the end of episode 3, a lot of our characters were very different from what happened in that episode to where they end up now, and it's just a wonderful example of what happens when you have just fantastic, preeminent writers, you know, with the story in mind. You know, this Andor's 2 seasons. They know where they want to go. They know the journey they want to put Andor and the rest of this cast of characters through, and they're doing it in a very unique and interesting way. And I just have been delighted by this season of the show, and perhaps most importantly, knowing that you know, last week on the show when we were talking about that episode, on episode 11, and the off-screen death of Marva, played fantastically by Fiona Shaw. I was sad that Fiona Shaw would not be in the show any further. Little did I know that Fiona Shaw would do Fiona Shaw things and just be utterly fantastic and deliver yet another stellar piece of what I am sure will become a very famous Star Wars dialogue. It is I don't know if you could have picked a better actor to deliver the lines that she gave in her self eulogy that we open this episode with, and that we will use now to transition into our conversation about the show. What I do want to remember, or I'm sorry, what I do want to do, what I want to point out, what I want to get off the table. This episode, it may feel a little rushed. I may not get into things as in the sort of general the sort of hyper detail that I like to sometimes, or I like to focus on one particular thing, kind of expound on it kind of endlessly. I can't do that today. I'm on a bit of a time crunch. I am only several hours away from boarding a plane and going on vacation. Visiting family for the holiday. So if you are celebrating Thanksgiving, I do wish you a happy Thanksgiving, and I hope you enjoy the time off at the very least. Hopefully, get a nice extended weekend out of all this, and go do Black Friday fun on on Friday. Yeah, so I'll be rushing to the airport here in just a few hours, and I still have many things to do. So I do apologize if the show feels a bit rushed today. We're going to try and get to everything as best we can. And you know that when we get back, we'll probably end up having a big wrap-up on Andor with one of our good friends on the podcast as it is. So I don't think we're done with Andor just yet. But that being said, since I will be out of town for an extended period of time, we may not have a show next week. TBD. I'll keep you posted on that. We'll see what happens in the interim. But, yes, let's go ahead, get into Andor, the season finale of Season 1. Let's get into our particulars, all right? This episode, written by Tony Gilroy, directed by Benjamin Caron. Our plot this week, Cassian returns home to Ferrix, a tinderbox that has experienced a spark of rebellion. Our principal cast, of course, Diego Luna, Stellan Skarsgård. It's all of them. This cast is just so darn impressive. They've all done such a great job. As usual, I feel bad singling out Diego Luna and Stellan Skarsgård, but Fiona Shaw is also in this episode and is incredible. We get it's just everybody. Everybody brings the good. Genevieve O'Reilly, even with the limited time that she has, is fantastic. Denise Gaw as Deidre Marrow. Everyone isn't getting enough attention here that they deserve, but know that they deserve it. So yes, this is Andor. Season 1, Episode 12, Rick's Road. Original air date today, November 23rd, 2022. And it's time. Strap on your buckets. Let's go.
I've been sleeping. I've been turning away from a truth I wanted not to face. There is a wound that won't heal at the center of the galaxy. There is a darkness reaching like rust into everything around us. We let it grow, and now it's here. It's here, and it's not visiting anymore. It wants to stay. The Empire is a disease that thrives in darkness. It is never more alive than when we sleep. It's easy for the dead to tell you to fight. And maybe it's true. Maybe fighting's useless. Perhaps it's too late. But I'll tell you this. If I could do it again, I'd wake up early and be fighting these bastards from the start. Fight the Empire!
Whew. Speeches don't get much more rousing than that. And talk about a way to incite some civil unrest amongst the populace that is being just suppressed by a totalitarian regime like the Empire. Oh, baby. That one got me going. That is, again, going to go down as one of the great speeches in Star Wars. One of the great pieces of dialogue in Star Wars, just like Luthen's dialogue from a couple of episodes ago. That is an all-timer for Star Wars. And again, just showing the master at work, Tony Gilroy himself, doing great things with this script and really just putting new depth and complexity into Star Wars in such an enjoyable, incredible way. This episode, as I mentioned before, just continues to ratchet up the tension, but this time it's on the scale for the episode's tension is across Ferrix, right? It's palpable. It reminded me of that moment in Rogue One when Cassian tells Jyn Erso that Jedha is a powder keg and it's ready to blow. That is very much the feeling we get in this episode for Ferrix. So now you know how he knows that feeling because it is that is you're waiting for that inciting moment, right? Like the episode opens with the son of the rebel agent, the one who the ISB killed, interrogating, building a bomb. And when a bomb gets built in the first moments of that of a show or a movie, that bomb's getting used, right? Like it's just a matter of time of when everyone in Ferrix will be sprung into action, and that bomb, much like Fiona Shaw's speech, much like Marva's speech, is the inciting incident for violence to rise up against the oppressors of the Empire, and the sense of community that the show has given to Ferrix. These are all characters. We're connecting back with characters that we saw a lot of in the first arc, and then we would kind of check back in subsequently on our small peeks into what's been going on Ferrix since Cassian left, since the Empire arrived and put their time on things. So it's all these familiar faces, and you sort of have to kind of remember all their connections, all the way that Cassian interacted with them previously, because charting Cassian's growth is really reflective in how he is with them now in this episode. Go back and see when he would be on Ferrix in the first 3 episodes, when he returned to Ferrix after the Aldhani heist. He is a changed man. His experiences have changed him in a very profound and deep way. We see him sitting, listening to Nemik's recording, right? The sort of manifesto that Nemik had created on, ultimately finishing to some extent on Aldhani before the heist, before he was crushed by the crippling oppression of financial burdens brought on by the Empire in a very literal fashion. It's fascinating to kind of check on these touchstones in the first season of the show, seeing where Cassian was in episodes 1, 2, 3, seeing where he was when he returned to Aldhani, or when he returned to Ferrix after Aldhani, and where he is now when he comes back to Aldhani. Oh my God, when he comes back to Ferrix. He has learned a lot. His experiences on Narkina 5 have shaped him in a very profound way, and he is a very different person than when he left Ferrix the last time. And the lengths he goes to sort of make amends and do right by these people to get them off planet, to get away from the Empire, because he knows that now he sees it now. He's aware. This is because of him. They have been looking for him for a long, long time. And it's one of my favorite things to talk about on the show was sort of like this idea that would the Empire ever figure out that they had Cassian Andor in custody? And through the first season of the show, they still have no idea. Which again, I think is a very interesting statement on just the red tape of bureaucracy and how there's just far too much of it. And when there's far too much red tape, you can't get much done, can you? Oh boy. All right, we're gonna pause on Cassian talk and Ferrix talk, because I want to talk about some of our other characters in this episode. We spend a lot of time in what the plot description called a tinderbox of Ferrix, and watching that those elements come together, and what sparks the rebellion on Ferrix. But we have other characters we have to check in. Not everybody is on Ferrix in this episode, though 99% of them are. Everyone's converged. Senta, Vel, Luthen, Deidre Marrow, Cyril Karn. Everyone, a lot of our characters are on Ferrix, looking for Cassian Andor, waiting for Cassian to fall into the trap that they have baited for him. But we have to go back to Coruscant. We have to check in on Mon Mothma's situation. Mon doesn't have a ton of screen time in this episode, but what she has is impactful, and Genevieve O'Reilly says a lot without having to say a single word in a lot of these performances. Just the way she carries herself, the energy, the attitude she conveys with her looks. It's just, there's so much going on there. The first scene we see them in this episode is her waiting in the back of her car, her hovercraft, if you will, or space. I don't know. I don't know. Her vehicle, her mode of transport, waiting for Perrin to leave another one percenter super elitist party, and her driver, who we know is working for the ISB, who monitors Mon and reports back to the ISB on a regular basis about her activities, her comings and goings. She asks for silence so that she can have a conversation with her husband, knowing full well that he will be listening in. And what she does is a lot of the things that Luthen said she was going to have to do to get her hands dirty, to make this rebellion a real thing. And she starts to sort of spin a yarn that she knows the ISB will run with. And that is putting a lot of the blame on the financial irregularities in Mon Mothma's accounts on Perrin's gambling, which I thought was so cold. and sort of just another level of that unloving marriage that they're in is that she's willing to pin her financial distress, the potential exposure of her moving money around to the rebellion. She's willing to pin it on Perrin and gambling issues, gambling debts that he's incurred on Coruscant, despite promises to do otherwise, despite promises to not do these things in Coruscant in the public eye where it can fall back on her. She even has a line about like, if you have to, go to Canto Bight and do what you must do, if you must do it. And it's just one of those lines. It's so stinging and so biting. And Perrin's denying. But Genevieve O'Reilly as Mon Mothma just does such a convincing job of showing a wife who is fed up and doesn't believe her lying, gambling husband anymore. And this is the story that her driver takes back to the ISB to paint for Blevins, the supervisor, who we haven't seen in several episodes, but is still very involved in monitoring of Mon Mothma and trying to get leverage on her and know more about her and maybe put her in a position where she can't be as outspoken against the Emperor on various topics. So he seems very keen to know more about this situation. The next time we check up with Mon and Perrin is when they're escorting their daughter Lyda to meet Davos Golden's son. The introduction that was teased several episodes ago, and then sort of underlined a little bit last episode when we find out that the old ways, the traditional Chandrilan arranged marriages, is something that Lyda, for reasons that baffle most of us, is into. And we see that introduction being made so that we can get the sense that, again, she is damning her husband to take the fall for the financial irregularities that are now in her accounts, and in a sense damning her daughter to a loveless life and a loveless marriage by having one of these arranged courtships with the son of Davos Golden, the sort of, who she described as a thug. So he's a criminal element of some sort, a kingpin of some kind perhaps, and she's about to tie their families together to smooth over any future financial transactions that Mon has to make in order to fund Luthen's rebel network and the growing rebellion across the galaxy. I talked about last week about how there's such an underscore of sadness to Mon Mothma's story, and that is even more so in this episode, as she does the things that she spent all season trying to avoid doing, trying to stay noble, trying to keep her hands clean, trying to keep her dresses out of the mud. And she has to get in there, in the muck, with Luthen and the other members of the rebellion across the galaxy. She has to get a little dirt on her hands now. And it's sad to see a character who wants to be noble and virtuous have to do things that's against their moral code, against their moral fiber. So a fascinating end to her arc for the season, and it puts her in a place where maybe she's looking a little bit less over her shoulders next season on season 2, and maybe getting more involved in making things happen with the rebellion as she's able to move money around, hopefully a little bit easier, unless Davos starts to figure out what's going on and maybe he tries to put the screws to her a little bit. I guess we'll find out how that relationship pans out in season 2, so something to look forward to on that note. Also in this episode, we catch up with our good friend Cyril Karn, who, listen, Cyril and Dedra and Luthen and Vel and Senta, they're all there for Cassian. And everything centers around Marva's funeral. And the funeral itself is this wonderful sort of moment of just exploring more fully the culture of Ferrix and kind of getting to know more about these people and their customs. The idea of being bricked. We see the brick that Marva's ashes are now in, and the funeral procession that makes its way through the heart of the town, down Rick's Road. Rick's Road, which has been referenced before in the show, talking about all the times that Marva's been there. Clem, Cassian's adopted father, the moments there, and we see Cassian touching the brick where his remains were interred, and having that flashback to that moment in his childhood when Clem was teaching him about how to clean up rust, and there's plenty of parts here in the galaxy. You don't need to go buy a new one for 6 times the price. These wonderful teaching moments that a young boy would have with his father growing up, and again, sort of showing that connection that Cassian will always have to Ferrix. His father is there, his mother died there, but he knows it's now time to help his friends in the way that he had been promising when we first met him in episodes 1, 2, and 3, but to actually do it now. It was time to deliver, time to step up and be the better friend, right? The one who for years would promise to pay you back, but never had any real intention of it. Now is the time to deliver and step up and get your friends out of the mix that you put them in. When you went to Morlana 1 and killed those Corset guys, and then when you went to Aldhani and pulled off another heist there, where that tightens Imperial screws on your homeworld even more so. Let's just get to it. Like, when rebellion is incited on Ferrix and everyone steps up to the plate again, the powder keg, the tinderbox, whatever you want to call it, that tension had been mounting and mounting and mounting, and Marva's speech getting everyone fired up, watching the way the Empire reacts to that speech about how the officer in charge freaks out, flips B2 Emo over, wants the crowd dispersed, but it's too late. They're hot, and then that bomb goes off, and that's when all of our action really drives itself forward. But before that moment even, let's talk about Senta, Vel, and Luthen on Ferrix. Senta's Senta. She is doing her thing. She is focused on following her targets, on following Corv, and now that Deidre Marrow is there, she's been following her, so much so that she does not go to pick up Vel from the shuttle terminal when they arrive, which stings Vel in a way that is predictable, but again underscores that Senta is in the fight, and the relationship is secondary. What I want to talk about is, we talked about Genevieve O'Reilly's wonderful acting without saying anything. That is Stellan Skarsgård in this episode. Luthen, as he watches the funeral procession, again, waiting for his opportunity, his plan that he relays to Vel and Senta is like, great, the ISB's here, they'll capture Andor and we'll kill him, because they're not going to want to, they want him taken alive. So they'll let the ISB do all the hard work. So Luthen is sort of observing these things. He's watching the funeral procession, the marching band that comes into town, the way the prominent members of society, the Daughters of Ferrix, this whole wonderful cultural experience is happening. And then he's listening to Marva's self-eulogy. And again, whenever the camera cuts to Stellan Skarsgård as Luthen, pay attention. Try to get into his head. See what you think he's thinking. And I think it's like some pretty profound stuff there. He's seeing the effect firsthand that sacrificing these worlds, that creating more oppression against them has caused. And I think it touches him in a way. And he sees that it's now riling the people up. He's getting what he wants. It's actually working the way he wants it to. But he's also now getting to experience it firsthand by being on the ground right in the middle of the powder keg. So when that bomb goes off, it is symbolic in so many more ways than just as a way to kick off the action of the show. But it's symbolic in the sense that, like, now the rebellion has begun. It's a very interesting moment. Dedra Marrow in the mix, also trying to smoke out Cassian Andor. Cyril Karn and his former sergeant, they're trying to redeem themselves. And as the violence breaks out, as the riots begin, Dedra knocked to the ground, on the verge of being trampled, being torn apart limb from limb for being an Imperial. Uh, is ushered away from the crowd, her gun taken from her, seemingly held against her back, and then shuttled away from the crowd into safety. We see her; she's shaken. She's the adrenaline, the fear that like she knows she was gonna die. To find out that she has been saved by Cyril Karn, a man she dismissed and told to stay away, and now is in a position to grant him a favor. It would be my assumption moving forward here. Cyril Karn doesn't get the redemption that he wants against Cassian Andor in this episode. More so, he gets in the good graces of a prominent ISB supervisor in Dedra Marrow, who I suspect they will have a very different relationship when we move into season 2. As for his former sergeant, Cyril Karn was quick to leave him behind to improve his station because he saw an opportunity to rescue Dedra Marrow from the crowd, get her away from the violence. What's also wonderful about this scene, as the civil unrest is happening, the way that Cassian is using it to move through the hotel. It's similar to the plan that we heard discussed between Bix and Brasso when Marva wanted to know about the old pipes beneath the hotel so that the rebellion can get inside and kill the Empire. This is what Cassian uses to get into the hotel, to move around, to get to Bix, to save Bix, and rescue her from more Imperial torture as a way to kind of pay her back for leaving her high and dry the last time he was on Ferrix. So he's using all these the backdrop of his mother's funeral and the uprising of the people of Ferrix to rescue his friend, and then they all plan to fall back to the shipyard where again he was trying to steal ships, in the first couple of episodes of the show. And now Pelgo was willing to help him and willing to help shuttle them, as many of them as they can, off planet. And Cassian gets them off planet, doesn't go with them, but he knows that they'll be safe. He promises to find them. Bix believes him. Probably now, maybe for the first time in a long time, Bix believes the things that Cassian Andor says because of what he has done for her this time around, coming back for her and getting her out of that situation that she found herself in. It's so many wonderful pieces of moving characters around from A to B, but in just very convincing, real ways. It's masterfully scripted, masterfully executed. And again, the performances, I don't know a ton of the actors they got in the show. You recognize a lot of faces, but they're character actors, and they're doing serious character work in this show. Not every familiar face that we know lives. There's the mole, right? The one who's working for Corv, who's giving information back to the ISB because he's trying to improve his station life. He's one of the characters who gets blown up in the hotel when all the grenades go off. A lot of the other familiar faces around Ferrix, they don't make it out of this alive either. The civil unrest, the fear of the Empire lashing out now in the face of this rebellion. Because again, much like on Arcana 5, the numbers are in the favor of the people. It's through sheer firepower and willingness to just fire on unarmed people that the Empire is hoping to regain order on Ferrix. We are sort of left wondering just what state Ferrix is in at the end of this episode as the fighting kind of continues and rolls on throughout the day. But it's just a really just wonderful look at when a society, when a civilization, when a people have reached a breaking point with tyranny and oppression in their lives. And again, Stellan Skarsgård says so much without saying a thing as he's listening to Marva's again the self-eulogy and the moments to fire everything up. There's a lot of great moments in this episode, and I know I've kind of glossed over a few things, but Cassian with Brasso underneath in the tunnels, talking to him, trying to apologize for the wrongs that he's done, and Brasso bringing like one of Marva's final words about Cassian, knowing that I don't want to use I don't want to play I'm not going to play the clips from it. But it's so powerful, so impactful, that no matter what Cassian's done, she knows that he can do more good, and he will do more good, and that he's just the spark that things needed to get going. So even from beyond the grave, Marva's able to help get Cassian on the path that we know he's going to get on. and direct him to, and sort of direct his energies in the right way. She's always believed in him, and now he has the experiences and the drive to do the things he needs to do now. Like, he is more in the fight now than he went to Aldhani. He was a hired hand on Aldhani, but he's been changed. He's been changed by his experiences on Narkina 5. He's been changed by Marva's passing, by seeing what his actions have wrought on his homeworld of Ferrix, a place he has an intense connection to, as is reestablished in this episode when he touches his father, when he touches Clem's brick in the wall. All these things are just masterfully done and insanely well executed. And Diego Luna puts in, it's so funny. Diego Luna is absolutely fire in this show. He's fantastic. I think sometimes he gets a little overshadowed, a little unfairly, because he's bringing the goods just as hard as Stellan, as just as good as Fiona Shaw, as Genevieve O'Reilly. So keep that in mind. He is our central character, but he's also delivering massively excellent performances. So having that moment in the tunnels with Basso is awesome, and the way Basso delivers those lines, Marva's final words to him, and the impact it has on him. Again, more acting without saying a word on Diego Luna's face. Just masterful. Absolutely masterful. I can't get enough of this show, and I look forward to rewatching this episode on the plane today, because I've already downloaded it to my tablet, so don't think I'm not watching it again today when I'm on a plane. You know I am. Hopefully, I'm not going to get into my travel details, but let's just hope no one interrupts me. We'll put it that way. And then we get to our final moment. Luthen trying to leave the scene. He's moved on. He doesn't seem all that interested in pursuing Cassian at this point. Cassian seems to have, I don't think Luthen ever really discovers if Andor's even actually there. But he's been outmaneuvered, and it's time to get out of there. There will be more Imperial forces dispatched to Ferrix. It's time to get Senta and Vel out. They're cleaning up their location, moving on. Senta does kill Korv, by the way. The great scene with them tailing each other, and Senta gets a drop on him, gives him a nice little Star Wars shiv. That was fun. But yeah, Luthen returns to his ship, returns to the Fondor, planning to leave, and we know he's not alone, and he's not. And Cassian figures out that, he asks him directly, "Did you come here to kill me? Because here's my blaster, so you can kill me or turn me in." And it's this wonderful moment again. Not saying a word, just the expression on his face, the little smirk, the little grin that he gives, knowing that this Cassian Andor that stands before him now is different than the Cassian Andor that stood there with him in episode 3 of the show. The transformation that he's been through. I think we all know. it's not a surprise that no, Cassian Andor is going to go under Luthen's wing now at this point and become an asset, become a vital member of the burgeoning rebellion in the galaxy. But it's just a really powerful way to end your season. And again, it's not a cliffhanger. We know where it's going. But to have Andor put his cards on the table and say, "Kill me or turn me in. Here's my gun. Do it." And for it to register with Luthen the way that it does, that whatever's happened since Aldhani, the man before him now is a new person and a weapon. I think Luthen sees people as commodities and tools, and I think now he sees a weapon in Cassian Andor, and that is going to be fun to see get played around with next season. As I would imagine, Diego Luna and Cassian Andor will have much more of a what's the word I want to use for the relationship I think they'll have? It's more of like a handler and an operative kind of relationship. It's going to be very much spy type relationship, like M in Bond. It's going to be like that, I think, on obviously a much smaller scale. But yeah, things have changed so much, and now our characters find themselves all in such interesting places moving forward. Do we catch up with B2 Emo and the rest of the Ferrix refugees now who hightailed it out of there after the civil unrest? Maybe in some capacity, but I think now we move into the galaxy at large in season 2. Mon has secured financing for the Rebel Network. at the cost of, putting her husband in the Imperial crosshairs and her daughter into a loveless Chandrilan custom arranged marriage. Because you know what I'm trying to say. A traditional arranged marriage of Chandrilan standards, I guess, if you want to go real formal with it. So really, what's going to happen next is going to be really pivotal, really exciting stuff. Andor, I do believe season 2 has begun filming overseas, and I can't wait. I hope the wait isn't too long, because I would really love for this show to be back next fall. But I guess we'll see how that goes, right? You never know with some of these Star Wars productions. It seemed like the Andor production took quite a while, and that may have been due to like COVID regulations and things like that, which hopefully have improved for filming times. So maybe our window now will shrink down a bit. But just a wonderful show, just absolutely wonderful. The acting was top notch. The writing, directing, all top notch jobs done on this show. But I don't want to make an unfair comparison to The Mandalorian, because I think we all know I love The Mandalorian. You love The Mandalorian. We all love The Mandalorian. We all enjoyed Book of Boba Fett to varying degrees of enjoyment. But Andor is different. Andor touches on so many things in so many different ways. It is complex, it is deep, it is dense, it is character driven, but doesn't sacrifice the action, the building of tension, the themes, the narratives that we're getting into, the idea of what it takes to start a rebellion in the face of overwhelming oppression, the idea of oppression happening when you're not even paying attention. It's just there's so much to get into, and I really look forward to rewatching this series over the course of the next month or so. Just kind of at a leisurely pace, just kind of soaking it all in, letting it wash over me. This is a different kind of Star Wars show, and I am here for it all day, all night. It is exceptional. Please, if you have the time on the holiday weekend, rewatch at the very least this episode. But rewatch the whole series by and large as well. Okay. I don't think I have much more I want to say about the show at the moment. Like I said, I do suspect we will come back and do a whole wrap up on the series with one of our good friends, and by then I'll have more notes on what I maybe forgot to get to in this episode. Because again, there's a lot, but I love it so much, and wonderful show. Go check it out. All right, let's get out of here. Like I said, I got travel I got to get prepared for. So everyone have a great holiday weekend. If you don't celebrate Thanksgiving, if you're international and doesn't apply to you, just have a great weekend, okay? Y'all take care of each other. Be great Star Wars fans. Be supportive of each other. Don't get into any of these teardown arguments. Twitter's turned into a crazy place. We may shift away from Twitter at some point soon. We don't know yet. That decision has not been made. I will keep you posted on that. But be a great Star Wars fan. Be kind and supportive, and just be awesome, and encourage them. If they have not watched Andor, they are missing one of the best shows on television in the year 2022. All right, it's November. I can say that now. One of the best shows. My favorite show of 2022. And if it's not in your top 5, or if it's not in their top 5, tell them you got a top 5 show for them. Top 5. All right. Reminder, we are still on Twitter. We are definitely on Instagram. And follow on Instagram too. At Mandovision. At Mando_Vision on Twitter and Instagram. Instagram will probably have some fun stuff posted this weekend from my personal life. If you want to see it, I may post on there some stuff. Travel things. We'll see how it goes. You can also email the show, mandovisiontom@gmail.com. Make sure you're liking, subscribing, following, and sharing the show with all the Mandalorians in your covert. If you want to give us a sweet 5-star review, they truly help small independent shows like us stand out, not get lost in the shuffle, and we appreciate you taking the time to do that. Thank you. If you'd like to join Buckethead Nation and become an official Mandovision Maniac, you can do that at patreon.com/Mandovision. Join the Maniacs and gain access to sweet bonus content. Thank you to our current Patreons, the Aspinall Chody, the Batman Abejo, Jeff, Nail, Jessica the Rioneer, a great podcast. Check it out. Thanks to Evil Circle, the evilest of all circles, the Squid Master General, Mr. Brian Broussard, the New Jersey Devil, Mark Wagemer, the Beer Hop Brigadier General, Jesus Beerhops, the Silent Assassin, he who should not be named, and Syndicate Ram, co-host of Come On It's So Good, and possible future guest of the show. We'll see. All right, everyone, have a great holiday weekend. Go watch more Andor. What a delightful show this has been. And anything I forgot to get to on this episode, I will get to on the next one. I promise. All right, my friends, you all take care of each other. Stay safe. Stay excellent. Have fun with your families if you're getting together with them. Stay patient if you're getting together with your families. And we will talk so very, very soon. Remember, this podcast can only end one way. This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way. This is the way.
I find that answer vague and unconvincing.